You can hear it pretty
Okay, well, if you
loudly. I'm
keep
just gonna avoid
sniffling,
it.
yeah, you can also just use the money. No, the sugar.
An abundance.
An abundance of money. Why'd you choose this book? Because you chose this one.
Yes, but you gave this book to me almost 2 years ago, and it sat on my dresser for like a year where I'm like, oh, I'm reading this book, and I had never opened it. I was lying so hard to everybody. And just
That was that book for like a year. Like, oh, I'm reading this book. Yeah, it's just good to have one of those in your back pocket.
and it just came to a point where I wanted to learn more at this point. Like I needed to know more. I was starting to invest my money into stocks, and I'm like, this is the perfect opportunity.
Yeah, I remember mom would tell me, she would be like, Ari just like lost all her money in crypto or something. I'm like, it's been like a week. Like, I don't
I was
know.
making I was options trading.
Options trading. I've done that. Yeah, I've also options traded, which by the way, that was a very short-lived career. I think I was a full-time options trader. I'm talking throughout the day for a period of like 3 months.
The stats on that job is not too great.
Yeah, I had to stop. I'm like, all right, I'm way too far in the hole. Like, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Yeah, I kind of knew what I was doing, and I was still failing because it's like luck. And you'll learn in this book, luck is not what you want. That is not.
Well, yeah, you don't want to depend on that. I mean, he says that
Right.
if you trade, it's like the fee of investing is the volatility, but you also need to tell yourself what kind of, like, what are even your goals? What kind of investor are you?
Right. Risk versus reward. I'm not at a point where I'm trying to risk all that money.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a chapter. It's like, yeah, it's like he says, like, I can afford to be like not the best investor in the world, but I can't afford to be like the worst. And like,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
I like this book because our family has been unable to build generational wealth. Like, that's a serious topic, generational wealth.
Yes,
I don't know if
love
it's the popular
this
topic right now, but we are feeling the impact of that. I mean, if I were to be honest, I don't really want to call mom and dad out too much, but they don't even have a car right now. Like,
Yes, they use my car.
yeah, our parents don't even have a method of transportation, and that's tough. Yeah, so I wanna break the curse of generational wealth.
Yes.
That's my goal. So hopefully, psychology and money will help us get there.
Right. And rework the brains, like how our brains have been formed so far growing up, constantly seeing that.
Yeah, so that's where I'll start. Author Morgan Housel. He says your whole experience with money, a lot of it is just to do with like the luck of where you're born. There's an economist that has shown that incomes among brothers are more correlated than their height or weight.
Yes. That's so interesting. That doesn't even make sense to me, the science behind that.
So we're most likely to have our incomes are correlated more than anything else, being siblings.
Do you think it's when they're poor, it's more common for them all to be poor or more common for them all to be rich? Because I feel like poor spreads a lot more than wealth.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good question. I see what you're saying. Like, okay, like that like there's less people in the world that are rich, but I see what you're saying. Is the correlation stronger among the rich and the poor? Forget the size of the group.
Right. I definitely think so.
You think what?
That you get comfortable being poor, being around poor your whole life. You don't know where to aim. You don't have any standards at that point. Whereas if you grew up wealthy, you're not going to want to become poor because it's more of an embarrassment, I guess.
I only know the poor side, although that's I'm not like I have this 1% perspective. I think that I would say the correlation's stronger among the poor, and here's why.
Okay.
They said that rich and wealthy, there's a chapter on here that says rich versus wealth, and it talks about how rich is like the money that you have now, but wealthy is living below your means. And I think living below your means is probably the hardest thing to do. Like that takes discipline to do that. Like if you have it, you can buy anything, but you have to decide I'm not going to, because you see this long-term benefit to put off instant gratification. If that's what it takes to stay wealthy, then I would probably say it's more easier to stay poor.
And that's the most fundamental step to generational wealth, I think, is that having that mindset, training yourself to have that mindset of living below your means.
Yeah, and the author does a really good job. The very last chapter in the book is the author is like, here's what I do with my wealth. Here's what I preach, but here's what I actually do. which I really appreciate. Do you want to hear something crazy?
Please, because I have not read this part yet. So I'm
Okay,
interested.
so before I get into the part, which I'll get into to talk about what he actually does, yesterday I went to a men's club. And I've been doing this men's club thing. I don't know. It's just people who we just meet at a library and just talk about how to become better men in our lives.
Okay,
which
that's
I'm
awesome.
always like, well, how do we become better people? But there's the men. We're all guys, so whatever. It's cool. There were two crazy new people at our thing yesterday. One of them was interviewing to be a Secret Service agent,
Okay.
and he was in the military. The other guy was also in the military, but this guy was crazy. His name was Lewis. Shout out Lewis, and he grew up in South Central Los Angeles, like in the worst part.
Mm-hmm.
And then he moved to Houston, and he like grew up as a thug. He was literally a cholo. I guess he was known as like the knockout king in high school. Okay. Here's why I bring this up. At one point, he wanted to go into the Marines, and he had nowhere to live because his father recently died. He didn't know his mom. He had no family in Houston. He was getting kicked out of everywhere. I mean, he was like a straight cholo. Okay, that's what his words, not mine. And he had nowhere to live, and so he went to his English teacher that he would like a decent relationship. He's like, I had nowhere to live. I'm trying to go into the Marines, but I'm gonna have to drop out of school again. He said he went to 7 different high schools in high school.
Jeez.
He's like, I'm gonna have to drop out again. I'm gonna have nowhere to live. His English teacher takes him to dinner and then introduces him to this guy. He's a pastor. He meets this Methodist pastor, and he says that this pastor changed his life. Like now he's traveled the world. He works at big companies. Like he's worked for professional companies, and his life has turned around. And I asked him, I said, what made the and he's like, all that success is due to the pastor. Like this father figurehead of my life was amazing. And I asked him, what made the pastor so good? And he's like, the first thing he told me was that being a pastor, he never once preached God to me. Never one time did he try to push God onto me. Like he gets this troubled teen. He never once, he's like, I will never push God onto you. But instead he showed me what God is like. And he believed, he's like, yeah. He's like, if God was on earth, he would be like this dude. Because this dude was a saint. And just told me about this time when like he crashed his car, and rather than getting kicked out of the house, he like bought him a new car. He's like, are you okay? Like, what do you need? And it's just a way he's never been treated before. And I just love how he was like, this pastor that I looked up to, he never preached. He just showed me what he did. And that is what the author says he loves in this book. Like he talks about this economist who's like, when he interviews for jobs, he's like, what stocks do you have right now? Like, he doesn't ask people like, what do you think about the economy? What stocks are going up? He's like, what stocks do you own right now? And that difference between what you're doing and what you say.
Right, the action's the most important. What are you doing to make it happen?
Even if we relate this back to our finances, you'll always hear our parents tell us, like, you should do this, you should do that. But if they're not doing it, it's like, I don't know about you, but it's never meant that much to me.
I completely agree with that.
Yeah, it's like if you're not doing it, you can't be like, don't be like me. That's just, it doesn't really work. It doesn't resonate with me. How did we get onto this topic? Do you remember the connection?
We're talking about parents, the actions, practicing what you preach.
This is how the author builds wealth. He says, we now live considerably below our means, which tells you little about our income and more about our decision to maintain a healthy lifestyle that we established in our 20s. Most of what we got pleasure from, going for walks, reading, podcasts, costs little, so we really feel like we're missing out. On the rare occasion I question our savings rate, I think of the independence my parents earned from years of high savings, and I quickly come back. Independence is our top goal. True success is exiting some rat race that modulates one's activities for peace of mind. So that is how he's like, it's not even about my income, it's just about my lifestyle. I want to just shout out that the author keeps it really simple. I mean, he's probably a big finance guy. I think he said he studied finance. And he's like, the time spent in investing does not correlate with your outcome. He keeps it super simple, throws in some index funds, and yeah, he builds wealth over time.
Something that stood out to me immediately because of like what age I am, was the fact that parents invest into kids' college funds. I think that's a huge thing when it comes to building generational wealth, because you want to set your kids up with the ability to go to school without having to worry and build a career for themselves.
Right.
I feel like a big part of me not going to college came from the burden of having to pay for it and having no setup.
Really?
Yes. And so that's a big thing, because automatically I'm not going to build a set career like going to college. So I think that's a big thing.
I just want to appreciate that you thought about college and how much it would cost. I never thought about that. I went straight to college. I mean, I went to community college for the first 2 years. Thank God, because that saved me. I didn't pay for that at all.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But then college and even my master's, like price never came into factor. And I got so lucky. There's a quote in this book that says, it's 60 or 70%. Let's say, I believe it's 60% of people with college degrees do not have a job in that major, which is that's so alarming. If you think about the price of college, you're going to pay $50,000, $100,000 in debt in the US and then not have a job according to your major.
I see it every single day. I mean, I'm 20. Every person I meet, I'm like, oh, do you go to school? Do you go to school? Most of the people that I meet that go to school are waitressing. Like, I haven't met yet someone so far who's graduated and been like, yeah, I'm working in the field, like in my field. Right now. Nobody.
I'm one of like the only people that I know, and I got so lucky. I only had I only had like one offer after everything into my actual career. And I mean, if it wasn't for that one, who knows what I'd be doing.
And it's crazy because I'm either meeting that where they're in debt and like doing a waitressing job, or I meet them and they're like, oh, I'm saving up to go back, or I can't afford to go back and I can't afford school. And it's so looked down upon when we are like in our 20s and haven't had any education yet, but we're in the same boat as those other people. And it's just like, I don't appreciate that it's looked down on, because I feel like in this generation, we don't need to go that route anymore. It's outdated. Yeah.
I'm so happy that you were like one of the first people to realize, like, it seems like you're a little bit of an outlier recognizing that college is outdated.
And it took a lot of pushing, especially with our family and their views. And that I just feel like since I was paying for my own school, I had the right to stand up for myself. And I mean, I was ready to pay rent. Like, I was ready to do what I needed to not have to go that route.
Yeah, you're ready to move out.
Everyone in our life pushed against it. Everyone gave me a hard time. So... And I don't regret it for a minute. I seriously don't.
I give you a hard time.
Maybe not, but I feel like you never have too strong of an opinion against what I think is right. You're always very open-minded. I'm talking like no, you're an adult, but I'm talking about like the people who've gone to school and like mom, dad, uncles, aunts, grandpas.
Right. Well, I mean, the thing is I've gone to school. I mean, I got my master's. So, but that's the thing. I think I recognized one. I always like was kind of ignoring the debt I was in, and I always appreciated that you didn't do that. I've always kind of had this gut feeling, like, I'm not going to judge you for not going to college just to get some random credits, because yeah, I could see it getting quickly outdated, and you're so right, it is. And I think people are starting to realize that. I think what's important if you don't go to college, like, to be fair, there's benefits going to college for certain careers. But I don't think it's the best for a large majority of careers, especially most of the ones people are interested in.
Right.
Like, if you're not going to be an engineer,
a teacher,
even my job that I had to get my master's in, I didn't, like, the schooling did nothing. It just set me up with the connections, and it just showed the company that, oh, he's disciplined enough. He can get an A. He can get A's, whatever.
And as people like you move into positions of power, I'm not going to need to come to you and show you my 8 years of schooling to get this certain job. Like, you're going to understand the mindset more. And so I'm not worried about it as I'm going into a career right now.
100%. You could go walk into my job today with 0 college and you would do great. Like, you would just learn like how to do the job.
Right.
And so that's at least my profession. I'm in HR. But I think what is important is at least finding out like what you want to get good at, like what you want. That's probably a more sustainable. It's like just what you want to spend, like what craft you want to build.
And I feel like the break allowed me to do that. And for so long, I was afraid. I mean, I'm 3 years out. I haven't been to school in 3 years, and I'm just now finally understanding what I want to put money towards to learn and get a certification for. Like, none of it has to do with college. Like, I'm so glad I didn't waste the money.
Oh, I'm so happy for you. It's aging well so far.
Yes, I agree.
I mean, I will say there had, having to go through all the college classes, I got great at having discussions, but it's like I'm also a lot, I've got a lot of debt too. So you can get that in other ways, just the interfering with other good people, having good conversations.
I do worry sometimes that I might lack in that area, considering I haven't done an English class in 3 years.
Yeah.
I do feel a little set back in that sense, but it's nothing I can't learn. Like, we have the technology, we have the tools. I don't need a professor.
Yeah, I will say, like, probably the most beneficial class I took was speech class.
That's a
And
big
specifically,
thing.
I had a good teacher. I mean, she was awesome. So there are like a few courses where you could just up your toolkit, how versatile you are. So that always could be worth it, but it doesn't mean you got to lock into a degree.
Yeah. Now, for me personally, I'm considering a couple pathways, and I'm going to pursue them all kind of. And it's flight attending and personal training. None of this I'm going to need speech for. It just, I care a lot.
Being a good communicator is very important for everything you do. Being able to articulate yourself will
Yes.
elevate you in every career.
I agree, but I'm also not worried because I think it also boils down to being just a good person, and I have a good heart, and I'm willing to put myself out there and learn as I go.
100%. Yeah, that's really the foundation. That's what you need. You need good intentions, need a good heart. Everything else will come along the way in the journey. Like you said, it doesn't have to come through a speech class.
Right. I'm not afraid to learn as I go. Just throw myself out there.
So one thing I think is also important, college, I feel like makes you focus on how you're going to make money. A lot of the times, a lot of the careers, which I think is not aging well. That's where people then they get fired from their job at like 40 years old and they have a crisis. They're like, well, I don't know what their whole life's flipped up. They're like, I don't know what my purpose is.
Right. And chances are they weren't doing something they liked anyway.
Right. I mean, there's a great chapter on here about a doctor who he grew up from the gutter. He became a doctor. Everyone looked up to him. He talks to him. He sees him for the first time in like 20 years. He's like, what's up? He's like, my career is horrible. First thing he said is, he's like, I'm sure no, my career is horrible. And then
at that point, the money isn't even worth it when you're not doing something you love.
it's not worth selling your soul, just spending your life. Your life's too short to do anything you don't love.
Yes, I've always believed this. Always.
And in that same example, he talks about when kids are younger, it's like, I want to be a doctor when I grow up. I want to be this when you grow up. And then you quickly get to realize what that work actually looks like, how you'd be spending your time, and that changes. Do you remember what you wanted to be when you grew up? Did you have something?
I don't think I even did. Like, they would ask that question and go around the classroom, and I'd be like, I don't want to do any of this. And still up until like a year ago, I felt that way.
Yeah. Oh my God. That's really funny. I always thought I wanted to be a doctor just because I remember doctors were just probably the most baller thing you could be.
I wasn't concerned about it more than money, none of it.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, okay, that's important because I'm starting to realize, like, look, I did the rat race, quote unquote. I went to college. Now I'm in this big company. I'm there. But one thing I've held on to, which I've seen some of my colleagues, like some of my coworkers lose, is that like love for what you do outside, where like something creative, something that sparks joy outside of your job. I have a couple of friends who are artists and they still have jobs at the moment, and they'll like work for a year and then just use that money just to fund their life as an artist.
Yeah, I mean, that's awesome.
Right, so they only use jobs to fund what they love, which I like. I think you're gonna have a happier life if you do that rather than just try to,
Yeah, that's what I've kind of been doing, just on a smaller scale, because I don't have that set career yet, but I've just been making my money to like travel and see what I do want to put my money into.
Mom would ask me, like, what do you think about Ari doing this or that? And she would come to me more concerned than I am. And I'm like, I honestly, I trust her. But I think the reason I never want to like try to like influence you to push you into like, you got to choose a career. They talk in the book of how crucial it is to stay versatile and be open and be willing to change. Because when you're willing to change, like what you're working to, like you change. Like there's a thing on here about tattoos, and it's like people make decisions now. This is for money too. People make decisions for who they are now that impact the future, and then when the future comes, they made those old decisions, and it like haunts them. He defines that as sunk cost. So he says a sunk cost is a decision that you made in the past that is bearing on you today. It's like keeping you in a cell. And they talk about those sunk costs I just love that you're keeping this open because, like you said, your identity is not set. Oh, I'm this person who is an engineer, and then you find out I don't love it. Like, you're kind of going to whatever gives you joy or energy, which I think is the right thing to do. And I encourage you to keep doing that. I've always made the decision I'm going to choose the option. When I've had options like for example, when I got the opportunity to go to England, I got good grades. Like, I got the scholarship. I had to choose. It was like, do you want to do this specific business course and like in some certain facet of business? It's like, or do you want to do psychology? And I was like, well, I'll do psychology because that's really relatable to everything. And I remember that's around the time I heard the advice, like choose the option that gives you the more options in the future. Like always choose options that lead to the most other options that don't narrow you as much. And that's worked out well for me. And I think that's great for you because if some new technology or some new career comes out of like AI,
there goes down a whole entire set of careers for a whole entire set of people, and that's
right.
terrifying.
People are already there. Like you're like you could like if you wanted to, you're in the place of a new career comes out tomorrow. You could be like, I'm gonna decide to do this because I'm not like on this path already.
Exactly.
You have no sunk costs in terms of going to your new career, which I think is awesome.
And that's why a lot of the time in job interviews, because I have bounced like back and forth with like fast food jobs, they ask you, where do you see yourself in like 3 or 5 years? I'm not planning that far ahead. I'm going to do what I love for this year. And if I want to do something completely different next year, I will. Like, I don't like that question. And that's a question that gets asked all the time.
Where do you see yourself in 3 to 5 years?
Yeah.
I get asked that too a couple times, and I never know how to answer. You know what my answer to that always is?
What?
I think from sunrise to sundown.
Day to day.
Yeah, that's literally like, I'm just trying to think about what I had for dinner. I ain't even thought about that yet. And I love dinner. Yeah, it's really true though. When you think from sunrise to sundown, I mean, obviously you need a little bit of planning, like a little bit.
But to me, that's too much of a set mindset.
5 years, I could never predict. I've never thought about it, thank God. I think that's you'll never predict where you are in 5 years.
And why does Taco Bell want to know where I'm going to be in 5 years? Because it's not here.
Not here.
Right.
Next, yeah. That's probably one of my least favorite questions.
Yes. And I hate answering it because I just want to be like, sir, I have no clue.
Yeah, okay. If I had to answer that to like someone who's judging me, trying to get a job, I probably would still say I think about maybe the next year at the most. I don't spend too much energy there, but I can at least give you values. What I would say is I can give you values that I have held for the past 5 years that I think I will still have in 5 years, and that will be driving my decisions.
Okay,
that could maybe something you tell yourself, so at least you have something to say, rather than telling them like, don't ask me that ever again. You know?
I'm gonna teach them a lesson here. We're gonna flip the interview.
Right? Yeah, I don't think interviewers like that. Probably not. Don't be trying to teach your interviewers lessons.
No, never.
Which, by the way, I know Dad has been going through a lot of interviews, and Mom told me with him in the car like how like he like taught the interviewer a lesson, and they were so excited. And I'm like,
What did he?
I'm like, how was that received by the interviewer? You know, like
from the interviewer's perspective, not Dad's.
Right, because they were all great that they taught him this lesson. Like, that's not the time to like, yeah, good job, but that's not what matters here. In terms of sunk costs, I'm curious because they use the example of tattoos, of like decisions that you make in the moment that later on don't always fit you. How many tattoos do you have? And do you regret any of the tattoos that you have? I don't mean to be calling you out. I'm just curious.
Okay, I have 4 that I tell people.
And how many that you don't tell people?
1. Luckily, only 1.
Luckily 1.
And it's very hidden. You would not probably guess. But I have...
Can you say where it is?
It's inside my mouth.
Oh, you have a lip tat.
Yeah.
I think I knew that.
Mm-hmm. I've had 3 different lip tats.
You had 3 lip tats?
Yeah.
Do they change, or are you getting them covered up?
They're supposed to change. The first 2 times they changed, and so the second time I was like, oh, it fades so quick. I'm gonna do something stupid. I'm gonna do something silly.
Yeah.
It didn't fade.
No way.
Yeah. And now it's been like that for a year, and it hasn't faded at all. So that definitely regret that. But I have 4 others that I have no regrets.
Are you willing to show me the lip tat or no?
You want your... The way we laugh. Hold on.
Oh my gosh.
That's how it's been covered up.
I can't honestly even tell what that is.
Exactly. That's the point. Can you cut it out if I say what they are?
Yeah, you can cut it out.
Okay, the first time I got Queen, and I liked it.
Cool.
Then I got a boy's name.
You okay?
I almost did that, sis. I was gonna do that, and it wasn't up to me. The reason I almost got.
It was supposed to fade. And we're still friends to this day, so it's like when I meet people, I'm like, just so you know, like,
Okay.
hard to bring up. Now, and then I covered that up with envy, and now it's a scribble.
Did the guy's name start with an E, so you made it into Envy?
Yeah.
That's pretty funny. I want to make you say you don't feel bad. Okay, I have no tattoos. However, there was one time I met this person within the last 2 or 3 days, and they convinced me to get our names tattooed on our lips.
And you did?
I was going to, but we literally went to the place, but the guy he was booked up the next few hours, and we're like, oh, we'll just go do something else.
Good.
And I didn't.
Good.
But I was literally like, all right, I'm down. And I cannot believe looking back, I was like, I am judging myself. I'm like, who am I to be willing to get a tattoo of someone I just met like that? I mean, I still am not okay. That's something I think about at night. I'm like, I can't believe I was willing to do that. So you're not alone. I honestly, if it wasn't for that tattoo guy's schedule, thank God, I would have some chick's name that, by the way, I basically never talked to again after that week. Like, okay.
I wouldn't regret. I'm not going to regret it forever because it will fade.
Yeah.
I'm just mad, I think, that it didn't fade as fast as the first one because I'll just get something else in there. Like, I'm not torn up about it.
Okay. So all the other tattoos you still like.
Extremely.
You
They're
love.
attention grabbing. They're great conversation starters for random people and people I know just because they're all so meaningful to me. All of them. Yeah. So you're 27 now. Do you plan to get any? Because I feel like you're at a point where you know if you're going to get a tattoo or not. Maybe not. I mean, Dad got one at like 40 for the first time.
Yeah. Right. You never know. Yeah, I wanna like my gut tells me no, but predicting the future is hard. You know, who knows?
So, yeah. I think I'm a very artsy person, so I'm going to get way more.
You wanna
I'm
know-
gonna get way more.
Funny enough, I was like, oh, I don't have any tattoos. I'm 27. I've all, because then you're kind of like that person, like, oh, I don't have any tattoos. You know, you kind of like identify like that. But I will say, the closest I've gotten to a tattoo in reality is when I started this podcast. I was like, I seriously was like, I'm thinking of getting a face tattoo of like a book or Paper Chasers or something.
Look,
Yeah.
would your job allow that?
Well, that was one of my first concerns. I'm like, I don't know how my job would feel about a face tattoo.
You know what they have? You can get one and it's like the ink doesn't show up in normal lighting, but under UV, or not UV, what's like that blue light?
Oh, blue
It'll
light
only show up in
tattoos.
blue light. How cool is that?
That's pretty cool.
See,
I
if I
kind
can
of like
find
that.
that, I'll do it.
That's kind of innovative.
Yeah. I put a heart on my face just to say I have it at that point. That's so dope.
There's a thing. There's some guy at my fight gym that I go to. Shout out Urban Jungle Self Defense, my fight school. There's a dude that has a face tat. He has a couple of them. His name's Amancio, I believe. Shout out Amancio. But I love his face tats. I think face tats are awesome.
I agree.
Here's the thing. I think they're cool. Like, I like to live my life. Like, I like to think of myself like a cartoon character. Like, I'm trying to be someone that you would choose on the Mortal Kombat screen.
Yes.
And a face tat is sick. I think it's cool.
As soon as it becomes socially acceptable, I'll be there.
Yeah.
But right now, that's one thing people are not too lenient about.
Yeah. You seen the guy with the, and I'm gonna blank his name right now. You seen the guy that has like the avatar thing in red tattooed on his head?
No.
It was pretty cool at first, but I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. It's like sometimes he looks uncomfortable. Like, you know.
I always wonder how that works when their hair's growing back and it's healing.
Well, he's bald, so he was always rocking it. But now
Okay.
sometimes he's wearing a lot of hats and stuff, and I'm just like, and how do you feel about that?
Like me, personally?
Yeah, how do you feel about it?
Personally, I wouldn't get it. I
No,
wouldn't
you
do
wouldn't
it.
get an avatar thing on your head. It's bold. It's like red and it's filled in.
I think that's awesome, though.
I think it's cool. Here's the thing, I'll never forget that guy. If he didn't have that, he would have flew up on my radar.
Right.
And same thing, like if I were to have a book on my face, like you're not gonna forget that. Maybe here's the things. There's some things you don't want to be known for. You know, I don't know if the book that, I just thought it was cool. I'm like, I'll be the first one in the world to do that.
Where on your face were you gonna get it? Like your cheek?
Well, you know what? Actually, at first I was looking at like a behind the ear or in my ear.
I have one there.
You have an ear tattoo?
Yeah. Well, not like in the ear, but
Where's yours? Oh yeah. So yeah, I was looking at that. That's awesome.
thank you. That one,
What does that say?
let it all go in Italian, like negative energy type, like let go of it all.
Hey,
Everything.
in Italian.
Yeah,
Shout out the great ancestors.
most definitely.
Cool. So I was thinking of that. Where else was I thinking of getting it? I mean, honestly, if it were up to me, I'd get it like by my eye. Like, I think that'd be sick.
That's the most common. I think that looks the coolest.
That
That's
looks
where
the coolest,
yeah.
right? It's like, if I'm gonna get one, I don't need all this. Like, but I'll get one right here. Yeah, I have one tattoo, you know. But I held off on that. Here's the thing, I do change. I'm like, just we're just gonna wait.
Sit on it for a couple months.
I think I'll be
maybe.
reading books for the rest of my life. That's the thing. Like, I do believe in it. It's not that I don't believe in the idea of what I'm doing. I think I just, in terms of how I carry myself, maybe that's not how I have to show it. I don't know. We'll see.
I feel like it's bold. It's a bold statement because you're a very professional person in a professional career and
Right.
like well
Well, that's the
spoken. They'd
thing.
be like, you'd be the type of person who can change people's mind on a face tattoo. Because we see it on these rappers like rapping about all this garbage, and we say like, oh, it's a trashy thing. Seeing someone like you socially okay with having one on your face, it's like, oh, respectable people can have a face tattoo. You could make that change,
Yeah.
which I think is great.
I
That's
would
cool.
love to do. I think it's cool. Really, honestly, the biggest thing is like my work right now, because I don't know I don't know if they can choose a CEO that has face tats. I don't know. I mean, I think they should.
Become the CEO, then get a face tattoo, change the rules.
Yeah, exactly. I
Yeah.
think they should. So I still don't think it's the worst idea. Do you think that? What do you think about it?
I think I need to see a drawing of the book.
You're right. You need to see what it
I
is.
need a
Me too. This is just in theory. I have don't even know. It'd be something along Paper Chasers or a book. Something about the book club. A great thing about this book is that he's not giving you like specific investing advice. They just talk about fundamental truths, or they say universal truths about money and human behavior. And it's good to know those. One, I'll go. So there's 20 chapters, 16 for the Kindle version. But I actually like the chapters themselves. Like, you go to the page where it just like says like what chapter it is, and it has a quote. A lot of the quotes on here are actually super useful. So I'll go through a couple of those that I thought were just good tidbits, and we can reflect on them. First one, the power of compounding interest. I need your thoughts on this. Compounding interest. And he talks about the real power of compounding. He talks about Warren Buffett's net worth. Like, do you know who Warren Buffett is?
Yeah, literally, that type of money doesn't even make sense to me. That doesn't process in my head. People are that rich.
Yeah, there's also like thousands of people that are that rich, like in the billions. And I'm like, just knowing what else that money could be used for, I'm like, am I okay? Is it okay that thousands of people are worth like 50 billion? I don't even know how I feel about that.
Topic, because I'm not rich and I'm not poor. I don't know what I want. I don't know, because I feel like if I'm an extreme, I'd feel a different way. But I'm in the middle, so I kind of see both sides.
Oh, I get it. And I think capitalism is working good in terms of bringing out innovative ideas and making people like work for what they have. Like, I'm not talking about the system, but I'm just talking like, man, if you're 50 billion versus 1 billion, like, you can still live any life you want. And just thinking about that extra cash that's just sitting in reserves, if that were to go towards improving the quality of life for the 99% of the world, I mean, it sounds good. I don't know. Maybe there's reasons it's not like that. I don't know.
I feel like there's some bad things going on behind the scenes. I feel like if I was gifted $1 billion, I would want to give away so much money. What happens to these people? They hit this certain amount of wealth and they just like become so stingy. Why is it like that? Why?
Well, that's probably what gets them rich. The stinginess. And stinginess with money or frugality doesn't necessarily mean they're a bad person. Now, there's a correlation, I'm sure. People that are frugal, that are penny pinchers, sometimes those are the worst people. But just that trait in and of itself, it can be harnessed for good.
Like he could change the world.
Yeah, you could. I mean, you probably have to be frugal now, at what cost? Now, I mean, and by the way, I like Elon Musk. You don't think Elon Musk is doing good?
No, he's doing great. If I could trade places with Elon Musk, yeah.
Well, right. But in terms of like doing good for the world, like you don't think he's looking out for the betterment of humanity?
I think he could do more.
Think he could do
And
more?
plenty of
Because he
other
has
people
like
could do
5
more.
companies.
I know, I love him. I love listening to him speak. He's one of the most intelligent, like, he's hard to listen to. Like, you have to rewind when you're listening to him speak.
It's deep thoughts and ideas. Yeah, they're profound. And I will say, Elon Musk is someone that like, he has his sleep down to like 6 hours a night so that he can literally using all of his waking day. He's actually someone I look up to in terms of making an impact on the world.
I agree, and I love his ideas, but I just always feel like there's always more someone can do. So I can't judge him. He's doing the best he can. I mean, that dude, I don't know how he's not exhausted.
Right.
He's not human.
Right. I think his biggest criticism is the bar he sets for his employees. Because working for him is like working like 12-hour days and stuff.
And not making that much money. Like, that's
I don't know about that.
like for the warehouses.
Oh, well, but that's Amazon. I don't know, like, where, I mean, he has, like, engineers at, like, SpaceX and Tesla. I think that's a little different.
Yeah,
now, we could talk about Bezos.
I
Amazon.
was mixing them up.
Oh, you were thinking of Jeff Bezos and
Yes,
Amazon.
that's the one okay. That's why I was getting myself mixed up. I don't like him.
Don't like Jeff Bezos.
Amazon.
Yeah, Jeff Bezos is the guy that, he like used to not have hair, but now he has hair, and now he's like ripped. It's like, man, like it's like if you ever think you're ugly, like you're not ugly, you're just poor. Yeah.
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 I agree with that one.
So Elon too, by the way, he also like got new hair.
Hey, if you could, I feel like you're going to.
Yeah, that's actually a good point. Like talking about that, like where do you land on people getting facelifts, getting plastic surgery? How do you feel about that?
I have an interesting perspective because not even 2 weeks ago, I got Botox for the first time at 20, which people think is crazy.
Yeah, how is that, by the way? I know you said you got your lips.
Yeah, it's good.
Lips look great.
So when I smile, I have like a top lip. Usually when I smile, it folds under.
Yeah.
So all they did was insert 4 units. It was like $50, and it just flips my lip outward, so I have more of a full smile, and it lasts a couple months now. I just wanted to try it.
Yeah.
After experiencing that and seeing how like I could easily just have something to make me feel so like good about myself.
Yeah.
All for it. All for it.
I love that. I love that. You know what? A lot of guys, by the way, that I've seen, and even myself, I find myself at first judging, like, oh, no makeup, no, oh, like, and guys don't get, we're not going to get plastic. A lot of guys don't, although I know some guys that do, who are masculine, love themselves. I think my perspective has recently flipped. Like, this is one of the things my perspective has recently changed on.
Yeah.
Is if you can do something that's going to make you feel better, why not go do it?
I relate it more to why would getting a nose job to fix like an uncomfortable bump you're uncomfortable with be any different than working out to tone your stomach down?
Yeah.
Just one costs more money. You're just mad because you can't afford it. It comes down to not being able to afford it.
There's that. I think there's another criticism too of people being like, "Oh, you're changing your face. You're not authentic." But just because someone wants to look a certain way, like I almost see it like choosing. It's like choosing your skin in Fortnite.
It has nothing to do with their heart.
It's nothing to do with who they
Their
are now.
integrity?
There
No.
is a huge correlation of people who do that and then are super artificial in life.
They would have been artificial anyway.
There's a large group of people who change their face and get plastic surgery who are disingenuous and fake and materialistic.
But chances are they would have been anyway.
But it doesn't have to be that way. You can be the most loving person. And if I want to look a certain way, if I could choose my cartoon character, I would probably look completely different if I could like customize my character.
Right.
So why not do that?
Yeah, I definitely see no issue with it.
Yeah.
I'm big on change. Always changing my hair. Always changing things up.
I'm big on change too, and I've had some really difficult conversations recently on the transgender community. It's a difficult topic, and it's in pop culture. And let me say this: I am the diversity focal point for my business, and so I have to be the one driving the diversity and inclusion, making sure you feel included, in equity, making sure that people who had hardships in life, that we give them a little bit of a boost for people that grew up with advantages.
I don't agree with that.
Don't agree with what?
Giving people more opportunity because they came at a disadvantage. I and yeah, I don't know. Are we gonna go into any detail about the trans thing or like the inclusiveness? And I don't know how real I'm supposed to get on that because I have a strong opinion on that.
Maybe we take that one offline.
Cause yeah, it's almost hard to relate it to money, but I don't want to see someone come out as transgender and then have more opportunities than me at work. What? Why? Because you need to be inclusive. Why do you need to be inclusive? We're judging on skills, not based on your preference and people.
Well,
and
100%. Well, let me say that when we do that, we still make sure that we make decisions always based on skill. 100%.
So then
There's
how are
other
they
things
getting?
you can do.
How do you give them more inclusiveness?
There's other things you can do, like if there's certain workplace adjustments or accommodations that they need to feel more comfortable, to feel like they can bring them whole selves to work. Let's see if we can do that while they still have the same expectations to perform their job. But if there's certain things that make them feel more comfortable, let's make sure they just feel that they're comfortable coming to work. That's one example. I do want to support people in whoever they want to be. I don't really care. And if they want to choose that they want to be, I look at it like a video game. If they want to be a female, if they're feeling that part of themselves, like I just want to support them and just feeling their best selves.
I see it the same as race. Just you shouldn't be treated differently because of it. Not any better, not any worse, just the same. Don't bring it to work. I don't care if you're transgender. We're just working at the same place.
Yeah, I think we have to talk about that because you say don't bring it to work, and I see what you're saying from a certain angle. I don't want you treated any worse than someone else. Like someone's like shouldn't be entitled to, oh, I should be better than you. I want it in a place of I just want everyone to bring it to work so that they're them full selves. Like be yourself, but still be loving and kind to everyone, and let's still all. Like I want them to bring it to work. If that's who they are, I want them to bring just their whole selves to work so that they love themselves and I love them, you know. I don't want it to put other people down. I don't think it should be doing that. And I think there's a fine line there, and I think that's kind of where it gets that's what because people do feel strongly about it. It's true. Like so, you know, so go ahead.
In this day and age, it's almost too dangerous to even bring it up, which is why I say just keep it out of the workplace. Because the second you fire someone and say they came out as transgender that same year, and then it's going to be you give someone an inch and they're going to take a mile. So all of a sudden you're being inclusive, but then you fire them. It's a skill issue, but instead they make it a transgender issue.
And we see, and I've actually dealt with that exact scenario.
And they will do that all the time.
And they have. And you know what? That's actually a really good example, sis. So I have dealt with that exact scenario.
That's hard. That's hard. That's crazy.
The exact like transgender skill issue at work, and they're making it about that. And when that gets brought up, I actually worked with someone on the case, and you could tell that the initial reaction, it was easy for them to be like, oh, here we go, someone pulling that card, or because we knew that person actually didn't perform up to standards. So two things. First, we had to do the due diligence and say, first, let's actually make sure, because it's really easy to jump there right away to be like, oh, they're just pulling that card. Let's make sure first. And I do interviews, and I found out, okay, the person actually didn't really even know that it wasn't about that. We actually have what they underperformed on. So first we made sure it actually was based on what they did and not who they are. And then I had to approach that situation with empathy. The person was being feisty, okay? But I was like, you know what? Everyone in society sees them right away and probably judges them in the first 3 seconds. Everyone's probably so hard on that person. I am going to give them the benefit of the doubt because everyone else is so hard and they don't even realize they're in the cycle of people are hard on them, so they come off as hard and it's harder to bring to them. And so I met them with grace. And you know what? When I handled that case, I had a soft spot for them. Like, you know, I'm so sorry. It must be so hard to be in their shoes. And I get why they're pointing the finger because people are hard on them. And so I can get why that's just empathy, really.
That is why you're in HR. And that's why I am not. And this totally comes back.
It's something you have to build.
It comes back to around to like finding what you fit in and what you're gonna do in love and succeed in, and that you found a job for you. Like you are good at what you do, because a lot of people could not handle that situation.
Thank you. I appreciate that, sis. And when it comes to, because ultimately I'm almost like a judge. I have to decide someone's fate, and it is important to have empathy. Now here's the thing: everyone's always going to think they're right. Let's bring this back to the book. The very first chapter of this book is called Nobody's Crazy. No one's crazy. And that's actually the last words of the book, too. The last sentence is no one is crazy. They say that a lot about the book. I don't know if I agree with that. That is a strong opinion. I don't know if I agree with that no one's crazy. I feel like a better way to phrase it is no one thinks that they're crazy, or everyone always thinks that they're right. That's the thing. No one, because sometimes you see someone do something and it's like, they must be crazy. How could they think? But really what you find out is that in their head, they have their reasoning. It makes sense to them why they did that.
That actually kind of makes me agree with it. I mean, you could rationalize any decision.
You can rationalize any decision. They talk about in this book, like when it comes to understanding the investing world, there's so much you don't know. Like he talks about he has a daughter who's like 2, and he's like, it's crazy how she has like 12 mental models of the world, and she just fills in the whole world within those 12 mental models. Like you tell your story about things you don't know. And that kind of goes into why there's disagreements, because everyone has their stories, and then when people dive in a little bit further, that's where the devil's always in the details. That's something I found out. The details are always what matters, but it makes sense how everyone thinks there's a reason for everything. So you agree with that? I agree with. I think I get what they're saying. What Morgan's saying is that no one thinks they're crazy, because I think there are some people that are off their rocker, for a lack of a better term. But I get the point. I get what they're saying.
I like how we made it such a strong.
I'm going to go back to the power of compounding. I never even got to finish my point.
Yes.
Listen to how powerful the power of compounding is. Buffett began serious investing when he was 10 years old. Because he started investing when he was 10, he's now worth 85 billion. If he would have started investing when he was 30, he'd be worth 11 million.
How do you start investing at 10? What was he investing? Why do they give him credit for that? He was not investing. That's a generational thing. That is probably passed down money. Parents taught, parents invested, and then he inherited and then invested. He was set up.
Well, I don't know his exact story. Here's an example of how you can invest.
At that age, right?
Yeah, I have people who I work with now. Well, here's a modern example of how kids can invest today. I have some colleagues who, like, for their kids, they buy them these credit cards, and they have an app where, like, for example, they give them $20 allowance each week, and it goes straight to the credit card, and they can spend it, but if they want, they can also, like, spend that $20 on stock. So they can buy, like, fractional shares. So they can spend like $10 of that, like $1 on Apple, $1 on Disney. And they told me that like their kids like love Disney, so they have like stock in Disney right now. And that's an example of how you can invest for your kids today. Which, by the way, if I had a kid, that's what I would do.
That's so fun. That's a great idea.
And it teaches them too about like it's a risk. Your allowance can go up or down. They were telling me like at the time the stock market was up, they're like my kid's on cloud 9, like their stock, their allowance is through the roof.
That's so awesome.
It is awesome. You have to have parents who can at least teach you that, somehow introduced it to you. Who knows, maybe he just inherited it, and it's like, you definitely have to be lucky to a certain extent. So we're going to go to chapter 9, and the lesson is wealth is what you don't see. Spending money to show people how much money you have is the fastest way to have less money. And it starts off with this example. If you see a Ferrari driving around, you might intuitively assume the owner of the car is rich, even if you're not paying much attention to them. But as I go to know some of these people, I realize that it wasn't always the case. Many were mediocre successes who spent a huge percentage of their paycheck on a car.
Okay, in my opinion, if the car is worth more than $50,000 and you're not buying it outright, you don't need a car that expensive. And that's a lot, actually. I'd probably say $40,000 or less.
So let me ask you this. You recently traded back in your BMW. You recently bought a BMW.
Yeah.
A nicer car than I had.
Yeah.
And from what I remember, now I don't want to tell the story, but how I saw it seemed like you were door dashing to upkeep the price to drive the car. But maybe that's overextending.
Okay, I'm comfortable.
Tell me the story.
Because I thought I was succeeding I did so well. I started off so good. and I let my ego get the best of me. Okay.
Ego.
And that's why I have such a strong opinion on this now, because I bought my first Ford in cash, sold it after making a good amount of money, bought my Honda for $8,000 full, paid off. I had a
Great.
car, like a Honda low miles. Oh my God, I was balling, saving a bunch of money.
Hey.
And then all of a sudden I had so much money and I was like, ooh, I could trade this in and get a better car. I want a fast car. So I did. I got that BMW. I was able to put
You
down,
leased it, right? Yeah.
Okay, I financed it.
Financed
I
it.
was able to, I had built my credit up, financed it myself. I was able to put $8,000 down, and that was half the car basically. So I was like, oh, this is great. It's affordable for me. I thought since I was buying it half, like I would just make the payments for a little bit
Yeah,
and pay
some
it off.
monthly payments. I could do it.
Wrong. Because it's because it's a Beamer. If it was a Honda or another Corolla, a newer one, it would have been a good investment.
Mm-hmm.
But those fast cars, man, that's one of these stupidest things that people let their ego get the best of them because they want to drive fast. If you don't know how to work on a car like that, don't get it. It'll take all your money. And I'm still to this day. That was like a year. How long ago did I sell it? 6 months ago?
Yeah.
I'm still digging myself out of this hole. The only thing
Yeah.
it did was help my credit a little bit.
And that's, yeah.
Not
I
even.
remember you were, I just remember the place you were at in life. Like, you were stressed out.
Yes.
It was
I made
causing a
myself
stressor.
miserable.
Talk about sunk cost. It's like, you put so much money into this. What do I do? Every time you're like, my car's smoking, you know?
Had to trade it in and still pay the dealership.
Yeah.
Well, that's why, yeah, I mean, I know that I helped you get out of that a little bit.
One more payment, I think.
Yeah, I have to check. But one more payment, that's great.
Yeah.
See,
After I have to send you today, I think.
okay. I'll just take some of these.
I have to shout out. You texted me when you were halfway done paying back that.
You were like, I'm halfway through paying off my debt. And you
I
sent
was so
some,
excited.
And that text, I screenshotted that and made that my phone background for like a month.
Yeah.
Not because you were paying me back, but because I was so impressed that you were like so conscious of the debt you were in and how you were just so tunnel vision on paying off your debt.
I really enjoy finances. I have a little notebook I keep in my purse and I write in it. I have monthly check-ins every month and I write down my check-ins, my savings, my bills for the week or the month. I mean, how
No
much
way.
each bill costs. Cause I have like 2 or 3 credit cards going right now and my 2 debts and my car insurance.
Yeah.
I dollar by dollar added up. And then I
Really?
put at the very bottom after each month the amount I saved and then the final amount in the check-ins and savings.
What?
Yeah. And I keep up with
You're
it.
going to have to teach me this.
I don't even I do it I don't know if it's like an OCD thing. But like,
It's a great, if it is, it's a good
Right.
thing. Yeah.
definitely a positive, but I have to be organized. Otherwise if I don't write it down, I will be thinking about money all day.
Wow.
I've always been like that.
You know, I've tried to use those. There's like apps online or like Excel spreadsheets, the
Paper is
budgets.
the way.
Paper's the way.
Mhm.
That's kind of where I'm at with books too. But yeah, I've always tried to do. I've tried a ton of them. Teach Me How to Be Rich. You Need a Budget. The top Google result, a budget Excel sheet. But for me, it's just hard to keep up on those. So I love
Yeah.
the paper.
It's
I
just
love
because my
paper.
mind will just run crazy. I do Grubhub and all day, every order I get, I'm like subtracting that order amount from what I owe. And then it's so distracting. As soon as I write it on paper, it goes away. And that's really been working for me.
Okay, I'm gonna take notes on that. I wanted to ask if after reading any of the book, if you've changed anything in terms of your investment strategy. And I'll start off with an example. So after reading this book, I realized one of the biggest things was the ego. Like your ego is why you're not becoming wealthy.
Yeah.
That was a big part of it. And I will say that after reading this book, there was this drop, this Joe Freshgoods New Balance drop, like clothing drop. And I literally, looking back now, I spent hours looking at that drop, figuring out what I'm gonna buy out of it because I wanted everything.
Mhm.
And if you have the power to buy everything, it's hard not like I just didn't have that discipline. And after reading this book, the day of the drop came, and because I have this new knowledge of like this is ego, this isn't a good return on investment right now for how I'm spending my money. I want independence more than I want to look cool.
Yeah.
Even if I think good fashion could be part of my brand when it comes to a podcast, like right now there's better return on investment of my money. Realizing that, I actually didn't buy anything out of the drop. And it was so hard for me. It was a new habit. It was uncomfortable. I bought nothing. And then the whole
That's
rest of the
good,
day,
though.
I'm looking at the drop and I kept going back to the page. I'm just looking at this t-shirt, like, oh, this t-shirt's so cool. And so it did impact me where I finally skipped out on a clothing drop because that's 100% my least disciplined area with money. And so it already had that positive impact where I now have started to make that change. I now buying less clothes.
That's awesome.
Thank you. And so what I learned from that is that, you know what? It's still okay to have clothes, but I need to have a budget. And honestly, I don't have a budget. So that's this impact this book's having on me. Have you made any changes in your investing decisions? How
Yeah.
you think of money?
So far from the chapters I've read, it's been almost common knowledge for where I'm at, but I'm just, I don't know. It's like a good refresher for me so far where I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, I agree with this. I know this. I agree with this. I know this. There's some shocking things, but a lot of these things I'm so blessed to have like just learned through experience already. I feel like I've gone through so much that I'm reading this book and I'm like, yep, been there.
Like the BMW thing.
Right. I'm like,
yeah.
I get it. And I'm so young. So I'm just so happy I'm at that point where I can read this book and already know a lot of the things I'm reading. One thing I changed while we've started the book, that wasn't because of the book, but it's helped me a lot. I save my money differently now. So I have a bank account through, I'm not sure, it's called Prize Pool. And it's just an app and you can bank with them. You put your money in it and every Friday it's like a free drawing. So the amount of money you have in, you get tickets. And then those tickets are for a raffle and they give out, it's like a pool of like $1,000 in it or something. And it goes out to people. And I've actually made over $20 just having my money in there
Really?
on the weekly drawings. And then so you can't take your money out. Like it would take 5 days to hit your bank account. So every time I pay myself, I put my money into it immediately. So if I want to go buy something big, I literally can't for 5 days. And most of the time I won't want to take the money out at that point.
So that's kind of a good thing.
And then I bank through Chase. So I have a certain amount of my checkings to pay for my bills. And then my savings account's only the minimum that it has to be in there to not get fined. And so I literally don't spend money like that anymore.
Yeah. Is Prize Pool like, we got to talk about that.
Yeah, everyone gets sketched out.
It just sounds sketchy, you know?
It's through,
Prize
what's that, like
Pool.
FDIC trusted FDIC, is that right?
Yeah, where like it protects you up to $250,000.
Yeah, they're FDIC, and
Okay.
the only way it's not is if you have like the 4% APY, but I think it's 3%.
Oh, okay. So that's great though. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have, okay. So that's your investment pool right now.
Yes.
Is through that. That's cool.
Taking a break from Robinhood.
Yeah. So have I. By the way, is my water Robin? Do I still have money Robinhood? I gotta check.
Like $7.
Right. So do I. I also just remembered I had like $100 in Bitcoin. I wonder where that is today. You know, that's actually an interesting topic. How much time? We have about 10 minutes left. One thing they talk about is bubbles, because they talk about the housing bubble, the dot-com bubble, and they also talk about predicting the future. So they're two different ideas, but I'll just link them for the sake of time, about how it's like stories. So there's this really cool story in the book about how if an alien came down to Earth in 2007 and was tasked with judging the economy, and then it's 2009, and he was looking for 2 years, and he's just like looking over Earth, he would notice that people from 2007, 2009, they now have iPhones. The quality of living has gone up. Healthcare has gotten better. People are online now. Social media has exploded. So if you're the alien, you would be like looking down to Earth and be like, okay, I'm going to guess that the economy is about the same, maybe better now. And actually, the U.S. households were $14 trillion poorer in those 2 years. And the only reason was because of the housing crisis. And the housing crisis, the only reason was because people told the story that houses were a secure investment was no longer the case. It was only that story in people's heads that these houses are not as secure of an investment that crashed the market. And it talks about how stories are the most powerful thing in driving the economy, more than anything else. And that can cause bubbles, for example.
Bubbles. Can you explain that? Because I'm a little bit.
Yeah, they say a bubble happens when short-term investors start to influence long-term investors. And so specifically, the point of the chapter, it says, be careful taking financial advice from people that are playing a different game than you. Most people are playing a different game than you. He talks about like people online. There's like Will Kramer that Eddie used to love.
Why would you trust anybody that why would you trust anybody?
Right. There's like that famous quote. It's like, don't ask a barber if you need a haircut. You know,
Yeah.
buddy's trying to give you a haircut. Don't ask a personal trainer if you need to lose
That's
weight.
exactly what I was trying to describe. I'm glad you said it like that because I didn't know how to explain it
Yes.
right. Why are you taking advice from your competition? They are not there to help you.
And people know this, but he said that people still want an authoritative figure to tell you how the future is going to go because people are not okay with uncertainty. People need the comfort of life making sense. And so rather than seeing the uncertainty of life as a complex issue that you need to calculate the odds of, they'd rather have an authoritative figure give them comfort and say, this is where the economy is going. This is the story.
They'll learn their lesson from doing that.
They'll learn their lesson. Yeah. You should be careful of taking advice from anyone because they don't know, are you a long-term investor, short-term? When are you going to take out? What are your goals?
Right.
Okay. But bubbles happen when short-term investors, when they invest in a company, they don't care about how it's going to do in 10 years because they're just trying to sell it by the end of the day and make a quick flip.
That's that day trading type of thing.
Exactly. So when people start doing that for a company, but then you have long-term investors who are like, well, I love this company long-term, but the price is so high, you know, I should invest in this because obviously everyone loves it. It's such a good thing. And then long-term investors start getting in, and then the short-term investors dump it all.
They lose all their money.
And they lose all their money. And that's an example of a bubble. I wanted to quickly get your thoughts on, they also talk about that. They also use that whole reasoning about stories being so influential to how people and how the world moves as to why it's hard to predict the future. They say that history is just a study of surprising events. They say that Morgan says that things that have never happened happen all the time.
Yeah, I always think about that. Like, do I think things that no one's ever thought before? Probably not. Like, but that's such an interesting
That's
thought.
hard, but new things happen all the time. So that being said, we are at such a unique place in history. They say it's so hard to predict the future for that reason. You think you can, you probably can't. I want us to try to predict the future a little bit, what our predictions are with artificial intelligence. And do we think it's going to be right now? If you were to go on Reddit today, the post of the week that summarizes, there's someone who's doing a great job of summarizing all of the changes in artificial intelligence in the week. It's currently April 2023. The title is The Beginning of the Simulation, and the top comment is, in this field of artificial intelligence, there is progression of like a year, but in 1 week. So like the progression that happened in the last week, in other industries, like in the automotive industry, this would be like a year of progressions. It's happening week by week. It's crazy. So recently, you know, we're at ChatGPT 4 right now. I'm starting to see some interesting developments in artificial intelligence where workflows for the creative process are becoming better. Like, for example, you can just put in like this whole podcast and it could turn us into robots. It's really cool. Like it's making that process a lot easier. One more, I've also for the first time saw someone create like a life simulation in a video game. You can go onto the website and see the life unfolding. And it was really interesting because it's kind of sped up time. You can just see people, how they spent, like you can see people's like life. It's almost like as if like God, whoever God is to you, was watching us. You can basically see that now for this world that someone created artificial intelligence. And one last thought, interesting thought too, kind of a different topic, but Elon Musk recently pointed out the fact that the way life is going, two things are going to happen. With the rate of this progression, either we're going to make ourselves extinct, and we're going to kill ourselves, or technology is going to get good enough where we will be able to have the technology to create a simulation as realistic as our life. Like we would have the technology to create a simulation as in our life, which says that statistically we are in a simulation, like we're someone's video game.
My comment was going to be about Elon too. Elon had made a comment about being scared of what he's created. If Elon's scared, I'm scared. And that's my opinion on it. I'm terrified.
Every interview, he's had like 10 interviews the past week. They're all just like him, just like, guys, I'm worried. I'm worried.
Like, I don't even know. Like,
and no one's listening, it seems like. No one's taking it seriously.
No, and he's literally saying, he knows. I am scared. Like, I am concerned.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, dude, it's great. No.
Yeah.
Terrified. I know nothing about the AI, just that the small clip I've seen of Elon talking about it.
So this book gives a great example that the reality of changes in the world, progression of technology, it actually, like the reality of humans, we actually take a long time to catch up with that.
The example was like when the Wright brothers first created an airplane, for the first 4 years, everyone ignored it because everyone was like, oh, airplanes aren't going to change anything. Airplanes are impossible. It was 4 years until the first time the news actually covered that and was like, wait a second, what are you doing flying these things in the air? And actually realized how impactful it was.
The last thing I want is 4 years from today that happened to me. I don't want to see AI develop. I really don't. Not in my lifetime. Leave me out of it.
Well, here's the thing. I want it to develop if it's going to be used to make quality of life better. And I think
What do you think AI can benefit?
Well, here's the thing. We're the ones that are creating AI. And so I believe we should be creating technology. The only goal should be to make our quality of life better. Right now, there's a lot of people are scared because it's taking jobs. And I get it that on paper, if it takes jobs that are menial and repetitive, it can have people do things that are more creative and fun. But I can get why people are so scared because it takes people's jobs. I think we're going to have to change our way of living. I think eventually AI will get to a place where not everyone's going to have work. Like eventually a universal basic income is basically going to be needed, I believe.
Oh my, you know what I saw the other day while I was doing Grubhub? It was some like ramen shop in Bolingbrook and they have a robot bussing tables.
No way.
Yeah.
There's
like
actually
it brings food around.
There's actually a restaurant in Houston that has a robot busing tables. We can go to it. I've been wanting to go. It's a hot pot place, and
Like,
the robot
It's not even a
serves
big
you.
place. Like, how did they get that robot?
Also, if you go to University of Houston, there's robot DoorDashers.
It's weird.
Have you seen that video of that robot DoorDasher and the guy's like he has beef with them?
Yeah, wait, they deliver. Domino's has cars that deliver pizzas without a driver.
Yeah.
Like, why though?
My favorite video right now, I actually watched it again yesterday. I saw like a month ago. Was this guy who there's like 2 robot delivery bots, and he gets put up. He's like, "Hey," it is these robots. They have like cute little eyes and they're blinking. He's like, "Hey, don't you be coming up on me like that." And you slow down. And I don't like you either. Then I'm just like, imagine your food being late because this guy's beefing with your delivery robot, you know. But he's like, you slow down. There's an old lady back there. So we will see how long it takes for AI to catch up with robotics and things like that, physical movement. I want to wrap up with going over just some lessons. I want to lightning through a couple of these lessons and get your reactions to them. If you're going to read this book, just go to chapter 19 all together now, page 207 for me, and just go through each lesson in a paragraph. They're really good. So here's all the financial lessons. Let me get your, it could be one-word reactions, it could be a sentence, let me know. Go out of your way to find humility when things are going right and forgiveness, compassion when they go wrong, because it's never as good or as bad as it looks.
Yes, 100% live by that.
Live by that. Be easier on yourself than you think is necessary. Less ego, more wealth.
Yes, 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 yes.
That's how you save money. Oh my God, ego is not your amigo.
No.
Manage your money in a way that helps you sleep at night.
Yeah.
Jodie Foster says that the real measure of success is how easily you fall asleep at night. The author says that the point of the book is do whatever makes you sleep easy at night.
I think people should be worried about money more when they're going to bed at night. Think about making your money. That's a good thing.
I think just sleeping good at night, I don't think it's like the sole measure of success, but I do think it could be a pretty good indicator. If you're not sleeping well at night, like maybe something's going on.
Oh yeah, definitely.
If you want to do better as an investor, the single most powerful thing you can do is increase your time horizon.
Explain that, the time horizon.
Time is the most powerful force in investing. It makes little things grow big and big mistakes fade away. It can neutralize luck and risk, but it pushes results closer to forward what people deserve.
Day traders can't live by that. It doesn't apply to everything.
Yeah, it really depends what kind of trader you are. I will say this, one thing with time though, I've realized everything I thought was a big deal was never as big of a deal as I thought it was.
100%.
Become okay with a lot of things going wrong. You can be wrong half the time and still make a fortune because a small minority of things account for the majority of outcomes.
Yes, the more I've done wrong, the more I've learned, and the more I've succeeded, and the farther I've come. So yes.
You only need to make one right choice, yeah, to be too good. Use money to gain control over your time because not having control of your time is such a powerful and universal drag on happiness.
I agree with this, but it depends on who you are as a person. I don't value money that much. Like for happiness.
They say that like basically the biggest reason to save is so you can have independence, so you can have more time. I will say time is probably the one thing you can't, that's probably the one thing you can't buy. So
yeah, depends on lifestyle because I'm not giving my life away to make money anyway right now. So.
Yeah, I love that. there's one whole concept I didn't talk about, but it's called Die with Zero. And that was my biggest devil's advocate to this book. Is there's like a story of a guy who's like throwing gold coins in the river and having parties. And then there's a guy who like was just a janitor his whole life, but then had 4 millions at the end.
I've heard this.
And he talks about like, oh, like look at how great it is to be this janitor. Like, but I'm gonna be honest, if you're gonna use money as a tool to maximize your fulfillment and you just want to live your best life, I would rather have lived that guy who had a great time. Yeah, now he went broke at this age, but he lived a great life rather than the dude who just saved it all, died, and the money just got donated to a library.
Right. Money comes and goes. Like, seriously. Like energy. It'll always come back. You can make more.
Save. Just save. You don't need a specific reason to save. That's the whole point I'm skeptical on. It's like, make sure you're using money as a tool to maximize your fulfillment. Go on that vacation now because it's going to pay dividends. If you go to Japan right now, you're going to change, become a better person, tell people for the rest of your life, as opposed to if you were to save that money so you can have a nicer vacation in Japan when you're 30. It's like,
right.
Do it now. Define the cost of success and be ready to pay it. Worship room for error.
Yes, definitely.
He's saying that the game is worth paying. Is the kind of the argument he makes here. The game is worth paying.
Yeah. And once
Makes
you
sense.
accept it, you're gonna learn 10 times.
You should like risk because it pays off over time.
No. That adrenaline becomes addicting. I've seen it take people's entire bank accounts. I don't agree with
You
that.
do have to be careful. Yeah, well, moderated risk, controlled risk. Risk it for the biscuit,
Right.
but not all the biscuits. Define the game you're playing. And make sure your actions are not being influenced by people playing a different game.
Yes. That was big. We talked about that.
That was awesome. Last one. This was the last one. Respect the mess. Smart, informed, and reasonable people can disagree because people have vastly different goals and desires.
Yeah, 100%. You have to learn from people.
You have to learn from people. And everyone thinks they're right. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So just be careful. That's the thing. They were like, be careful who you take advice from because you may think this person's successful, but maybe they got lucky.
Right. And the type of people who would get mad about you trying to teach them a lesson or try to help them out probably need to take a look at their own ego. They're probably doing something wrong.
Yeah.
You need to be able to accept advice.
You need to be able to accept advice. That being said, accept the advice of this book, Psychology of Money.
Yes.
Ari, hopefully we break the generational curse in our family. Let's go out and build some generational wealth.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you so much for recommending this book, sis. This was great. Thank you for your time today. I love you.
Love you too.